evil is coming that threatens our kingdom, our freedom. But we have a weapon they are not prepared for.
The Woman King is a 2022 American historical epic film about the Agoji warriors, an all-female warrior unit who protected the West African kingdom of Dahomey, which is modern-day Benin, during the 17th to 19th centuries. Set in the 1820s, the film stars Viola Davis as General Naniska, who trains the next generation of warriors to fight against their enemies. Shout out to Wikipedia. I actually recorded and uploaded this video a month ago, the day the movie was released, but it was filled with glitches and errors that I somehow missed, and I had to take it down. Fortunately, only 90 of you saw it, so I wasn't too embarrassed. So hopefully this time I'll get through this review without making as many mistakes. So on to the review. I will say this, the movie is entertaining. It's got great cinematography and action sequences. It's well cast and acted. Viola Davis did a great job. She'll probably be nominated for an Oscar. Same with Lashana Lynch. John Boyega, Thuso Mabedo, Sheila Etim were all great. So, as long as you don't take this film seriously, it's fun to watch. As long as you're unaware of the history of the people in it, or you don't notice the misandrous feminist messaging, you'll have a good time watching it. My problem with the movie is that I did notice all of those things. And I do know the history of the Dahomey Empire and the Agoji warriors. And what I did not appreciate is the fact that it lies about who the Agoji really were, and the fact that it fans the flames of the Black Gender War, all while leading you to believe the movie was about something else. The trailers sold the film as a war against European colonialism. It featured a voiceover that was speaking about freedom and an impending war, with an image of a European slave trader coming off of a boat. It also featured the image of three warriors overlooking the shore as three European ships were coming to port. So I went into this movie expecting them to fight against the French or the British. Nope, that is not what the movie was about. What the movie is really about is the Dahomey Kingdom versus the Oyo Empire, black-on-black tribal warfare. More specifically, the Agoji's role in that war. And just so we're clear from a historical point of view, there were no good guys in that war. Both sides supported slavery, and they were primarily fighting over who would control the slave trade in their area, because both of them were selling slaves to European traders. But you didn't see that in the movie. You heard the characters talking about it, debating as to whether or not they would continue the practice, but you never saw them do it. They made it seem like it was an internal struggle in the Dahomeyan Empire over whether or not they should keep slavery going, when that isn't the truth. It was actually the British Empire pressuring them to stop. Nobody within the Dahomeyan kingdom wanted to stop the slave trade. And that's the fact of the matter. The real Agoji warriors were major slave traders. It was their primary source of income, and it made them rich. They even sold their own people. Again, they were not good guys. In that regard, they were no different than the Confederate soldiers during the Civil War. I see them as Confederates in blackface. But in the movie, the Agoji warriors were depicted as freedom fighters. They opposed slavery. They were only engaging in the slave trade because their king required it. As a matter of fact, the opening scene starts off with them killing slave traders and freeing slaves, which is 100% inaccurate. The only scenario that you would find the Dahomey warriors killing slave traders is if they could steal those slaves for themselves. According to the movie, it was the black men who were the problem. The Oyo Empire and the Dahomeyan king, they wanted to continue slavery, while the Agoji warriors, the female warriors, wanted to end the practice. As a matter of fact, they were urging the king instead to sell palm oil. So you see the picture they're painting here? The black men were the pawns of white oppression, while the white women were the beacons of freedom. It reminds me a lot of the Harriet Tubman movie that came out a few years ago. It did the exact same thing. The primary villain in that movie wasn't the white slave owners. It was a black bounty hunter who was hired by the white slave owners. He too was a pawn of white oppression. And you can thank the writers, Maria Bello and Dana Stevens, for that. The two unabashed feminists who wrote and produced the movie. And speaking of feminism, that was very prominent in the movie. You see, King Giza, who was the newly installed king, wanted to continue traditional practices. So that required him selecting a woman king, not a queen, a woman king. You see, he had a harem of women that were divided into two sects. One was the Agoji warriors, who were his virgin warriors and protectors, and the other were essentially his concubines. And of those two groups, you had two women that were leading their respected groups. For the Agoji warriors, it was Viola Davis playing General Naniska. And for his concubines, it was a character named Shantae. Now, the selection for the woman king was a very important process because whoever held that role was the top advisor, which was important because in the movie, General Naniska wanted to end slavery. So if she became the woman king, she could urge the king to stop. However, she really didn't care for the role. You see, Naniska was old and masculine. She had short hair and hard features, while Shantae was young and beautiful. She had long hair with beautiful beads and adornments in it. So Shantae was feminine and submissive, while Naniska was hard and domineering. Naniska cared nothing about being a wife, while Shantae wanted nothing more than to be a wife. So you see the contrasts they've made? Young versus old, masculine versus feminine, beautiful versus strong, modern versus traditional. And of course, keeping in line with the theme of the movie, Naniska, who represents modern day feminism, won. She became the woman king. Aside from that, it was a Marvel movie. None of it was realistic, and I'm not exaggerating. You literally saw things in the Marvel movies in this film. For example, one warrior had her nails filed down into claws, reminiscent of Black Panther. And there was another warrior, who was a prominent character, who would fight like the Black Widow character in the MCU movies. So she would do that running, jumping, flipping thing that you would see Black Widow do against men. There were 3 battles in the movie, and in every single one of them, the women were slaughtering the men like it was nothing. They may have lost a warrior or 2, but they were cutting the men down like weeds. In every measure, they were overpowered. They were faster, smarter, more technically proficient than the men that they were fighting. However, there is one thing they got right. They accurately depicted the way the slave trade worked in Africa. You see, when I was growing up as a kid, I was taught to believe that European colonizers were coming over to Africa, walking through the plains of Africa, and just kidnapping people at random and making them be slaves or forcing them into slavery. That's not how it worked. Our ancestors were sold to them by their African brethren. It was fellow Africans who put them in chains. The European slave traders didn't even have to leave the shore. So, my final score depends on what you're looking for. If you're out just looking for a fun movie, something that's similar to the MCU Avengers movies but more violent, and you don't mind the feminist messaging or the grave historical fallacies, this is the movie for you. I highly recommend it. But if you care about history, specifically Black history, and you can't stomach all the feminist propaganda, avoid this film like the plague. As for me personally, I look at it like this. Let's say there was a movie that was set in the 1840s, and it romanticized slave owners as wonderful people. Black people in America would be upset because we've been taught to believe that slave owners are the ultimate evil. And in many respects, they are. And I think that we should keep that same energy when it comes to the Dahomey Agoji warriors. They shouldn't be romanticized either. So if you like this video, please give it a like and leave a comment in the comment section. And if you are new to my channel, please subscribe and turn on that notification bell. That way you will get alerts every time I upload new content. This is the Layman's Journal. Thanks for stopping by. I'm out.